Okay, thank you. Sorry for the delay. So, yeah, the presentation, as Misha said, I'm the CEO and founder of Twilight Cyber. And the session today will be focusing on how early detection of Infostealer's malware or Infostealer infections can prevent ransomware attacks and data breach. And to give a bit of a background, I'm sure most of the things I will tell in the next 2 minutes you are aware of. The world of cybersecurity is shifting now more from protecting physical entities, premises, servers, to protecting identities and services. Okay, this is coming from several reasons. More and more services are going to the cloud. People are working from virtually anywhere today. And the world is shifting more to protect services and more of that identities. A typical employee today have between 8 to 12 different credentials or different identities he has in the organization. And the CISO challenge is becoming more and more big to protect those identities. Some statistics show, first of all, that 9 out of 10 companies have at least one compromised machine out there today. And the majority of ransomware attacks and data breach today start with compromised credential. The big story from last month is Orange, Spain, a big telco in Europe, which got an attack on his IP network and suffered from severe damages. And it all started with one stolen credential or one leaked credential of an admin, which turned out to a very big mess and a big breach in his IP network, causing damages to his customers. So the impact of credential theft is I cannot emphasize enough about that. Average cost last year was over $4 million from a data breach. In 2021, numbers show that the ransomware attack happens every 11 seconds. And companies suffered over $20 billion damages from ransomware attacks. And also detection time is very critical. So detection times, the average time to detect and contain a breach is ridiculously high. It's 287 days in average. And also a lot of regulations start to push to disclose material breaches within 4 days. So time is very, very critical in that sense. And I want to share how a typical attack flow happens today in terms of credentials. So the first step is that hackers are spreading around a malware called Infostealer. Infostealer malware is a family of malware of around 30 flavors. What's common to all of them is the hackers are spreading them all around. They're not targeting a specific company like, I don't know, Bank of America or CNN. They just want to steal credentials in order to steal money. They want fresh credentials to steal money from bank accounts, credit card, Bitcoin, etc. But after they succeed more or less, they see that they have gold in their hands. They have gold in their hands because they have valid credentials from yesterday or 48 hours ago of large enterprise. And this is how they start the ransomware attack or the data breach. And the key here is the fast detection and alerting of those compromised machines. I'm emphasizing compromised machines because it's not only about the credentials, it's about detecting that a machine in my organization or in my supply chain or one of my customers was breached, and to get the full list of credentials and cookies that were leaked out during this event. And an early detection is critical because the majority of threat intelligence companies today and threat actors doing more of the same in that sense. They're scanning hundreds of forums, groups, marketplaces. I'm sure you know Russian market. But when the truth is that when credentials or hit by Infostealers are getting to those markets, it's usually weeks and sometimes even months after the leakage itself. And this is exactly the critical time of 2 to 3 weeks between a leakage of a machine and credentials and a potential attack. So the early detection here is super critical. And the key requirements for addressing this problem is, first of all, the immediate detection, which is super critical. To get this notification in a matter of hours, like our company is suggesting or providing, and to get the complete intelligence. As I mentioned, in many of those forums and groups, I'm getting a notification whenever this information is published, but this is sometimes partial information and usually weeks after the attack. And of course, we want a solution which will be totally automatic and will not require any installation on the endpoint or on the IT, because this is an intelligence solution. I want to share with you a sample of how this data looks like. And you can see here an example of the output of what Infostealer is getting from a machine. So a machine which is hit by Infostealer is leaking out a lot of the information of the machine, IP address, the username of the machine. You can see that a detection of Infostealer will bring you as an intelligence also where the malware runs on your machine. So what executable hit your machine, what is the path, the operating system, and of course the date and time. And after that, you can see that what services are leaked out during this event. And several use cases can work with Infostealer's detection. I mean, the trivial one is, of course, to protect the company's assets, the internal asset. This is the concern of the CISO. But additional solutions may apply based on the same technology. For example, account takeover prevention. This is looking at the problem from the perspective of your customers. Think that if you're a large bank, and you want to take a proactive approach and prevent taking over the accounts of your customer, you want to proactively check every single login in your company, compare it with the most updated database in the world, ideally, and prevent any login which is related to the user and password which are there. So another application of account takeover is not to protect the assets of the company, but to actually proactively check every login, making sure that these user and password are not part of a breach database. And from the last few months, of course, because time here is critical, and to force a reset or to do any other action if you find out that these user and password are part of a breached operation. And I'm emphasizing again that the detection time here is very critical. So the solutions today look at a lot of databases which can bring you user and password from 1 year ago, 6 months ago, 5 months ago. The intelligence value of this is close to zero. Additional use case, if I'm looking at the left bottom side, is for OT networks. So think about critical infrastructure company like utility companies, oil and gas, and OT network is a closed network, of course, not reachable from the outside. But attackers today can do a two-step attack using the VPN credentials of the IT network or getting a hold in an IT computer. And then if also OT network credentials are leaked out, as a second step, they can penetrate the OT network using those credentials of the OT service. So step number one, penetrating the IT network through VPN or a VPN credential or getting a hold on the computer. Second step, if I have the credential for the OT network, I can also potentially penetrate the OT network with the leaked credentials. And the fourth application is for consumer. So not only safeguarding companies, enterprise, or government entities, but also using it to safeguard consumer. There are many services like that, but again, time here is critical. So if I'm going to a database which is updated every 1 month, or I'm getting a credential from 1 year ago, it has almost zero value in that sense. So we're here to the part of Q&A, I guess, Misha.
Misha, you are muted.
You cannot hear me, or Misha is on mute?
Sorry about that. We discussed of doing Q&A at the end, just for the sake of time, to make sure that both presentations have time to play out. But Amir, you did. I think you did very well. You well within the time budget. So if you're your material is still fresh, I would suggest that we open the floor for Q&A. Actually have a few questions, but if all the listeners, do you have any questions for Amir? So unmute yourself when if asking questions. Well, as people are thinking of their questions, Amir, you mentioned that hackers are spreading Infostealers, and maybe it's kind of a little bit more upstream of what you're discussing, but can you talk a little bit of some of the ways it's done? Is it the phishing attacks? Is it social engineering? I'm just curious, what's the usual entry point? How does this malware get to production environment, different machines? What are some of the more prevalent ways you see that those Infostealers are currently spreading?
Yeah, that's social engineering is the right word. Usually it's planned as social engineering. It's either injected inside fake PDF or docx documents that clicking those files will run the executable either in memory or outside the memory of the computer, and will run it. So they can come as an attachment document for a legit or look like a legit email as an attachment, or just as a fake link the same way. This is one method. And another method is just to get some security holes in the .NET framework or Adobe. So using very well-known off-the-shelf vendors and using documents and links that looks innocent from those vendors inside your PC, inside your machine, in order to make you click on those files or click on those links. So either through an email or through methods who are pretending to be well-known vendors and using some vulnerabilities inside your PC.
Mm-hmm. I understand. And you also mentioned that time is critical because it's the intelligence value of compromised credentials decays over time. So something that's someone can use credentials to log in and do some damage now. Over time, the company may realize what happened. They disable the credentials, so the value of them to attackers, you mentioned, if it's 3 months go by, it's worthless. What do you see as the kind of the break point? I mean, is it something you need to react within hours, within days, within weeks? Can you just I'm sure you probably looked at this extensively. How fast does it decay, and how fast defenders need to react to a machine or with compromised credentials?
Yeah, so first of all, the Infostealers will leak two types of important information for attackers. One is credentials for important services in your organization. And the second ones are cookies from the employee or supply chain browsers. If we talk about cookies, so I'm sure the audience understand that if I take a valid cookie, I just need to plant it inside my browser and I'm inside the session. So I don't need to log in. I can bypass multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication. But for cookies, usually the time is short. Their life cycle is very short, from hours and to days, to few days. And this is one type. The second one is the regular user and password, which according to any company's policy, they can be changed every month or every few weeks. But if I'm looking from the attacker's point of view, so usually for an attack group to plan a ransomware attack on company A or company B, it takes between 2 to 3 weeks. So if I see as an attack group that someone can pass me valid credentials of Wells Fargo from 2 days ago, it will take a week or two until a potential ransomware attack will happen. So I would say that companies have around 2 weeks time, maybe 3 weeks time until they need to take the action. So the short answer to your question is days, maybe 1 or 2 weeks. They need to respond, to react, to change the password, to look for the malware on the computer, which is also very important. So as I showed you, there is also important forensics and incident response information that the company needs to react to and take the action to make sure that the malware is not still on the machine and can take the next step inside the organization.
I understand. It's super helpful. Unless anyone has questions, I have one last question. Without giving away too much of a secret sauce, how is Twilight capable of detecting Infostealers and linked credentials faster than others?
No, that's a very good question. So think about running on the dark web. The dark web is like saying the internet. It's infinite, almost infinite. So when such an information is leaked from an organization, it starts by being held on the attacker's computer. So whenever it's on the attacker's computer, if it's not getting out of there, no one can detect this for sure. But on the dark web, there is some layers or some steps when the attackers start to promote this information until it reaches the forums and the groups and the marketplaces that you all know, like Russian market and the groups. So it usually takes weeks between the time it starts to move and the time it's published for everybody. So we maintain, based on our years of experience, we build a technology, totally automatic and scalable, of course, of dozens of secret agents, let's call it that way, or bots. We like to call it agents, not bots, which are present like a secret agent of the police. Okay, they can be present in the small groups, in the closed groups, as close as it can be to the attacker's computer. And this allows us to be detecting these hours after it starts to move in the dark web and weeks before it's published in the places that others can see, scrape, and notify.
Super helpful. Super helpful. Thank you so much.